I'm Estelle Bingham, and this is the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey of exploration into what I believe are the secrets of a good life. Now, more than ever, when everything is shifting, uncertain, upside down, and quite frankly a little bit inside out, the secret of life is just three things. The secret is love, purpose, and connection. But knowing the secret is really just the beginning of the journey. You need to know how to find those things, how to protect and how to grow them. And that's where this podcast comes in. Here on Love, Purpose, Connection, I want to explore how to discover and really develop the secrets of a good life. I'm a holistic therapist and healer, and I work with people every day from all walks of life who feel stuck, lost or out of balance. Feelings we all recognise. I help them inhabit their lives in a new way, feeling a very real sense of positivity, empowerment and hope. And so over this series, I'll be sharing frank, inspiring, sometimes raw, often joyful conversations with a different guest each time, exploring their relationship to love, purpose and connection. Some of the people I've worked with and others have informed and inspired my own work. But together we'll be exploring just what those three words really mean, and also, crucially, how you can discover and develop them in your own life. Today I'm talking with British Jamaican entrepreneur Sharmadean Reid, MBE, a true rebel spirit, disruptor and pioneer in the beauty industry. Founder of Beauty Stack and Wild Nails, her core passion has been to empower women economically using tech and beauty as a means for radical autonomy and self-expression. Her dream has been to create ways for women to all rise together. I was curious to spend some time with Sharmadean because of the way she writes about self-esteem and the inner child. On the days when you're not feeling like you're enough, she says, write yourself a love letter. Forgive your child, give them a little cuddle, show them empathy, but remind them that you're grown up now and today you are most certainly enough. When we spoke, she was really feeling the impact of lockdown isolation, and we started to talk about her desire to move home.
I grew up where my mum moved house every 3 years, so it's very natural for me to feel anxious when I'm in the same place for too long.
It triggers you?
Yeah, because I'm just like, this is oppressive. You just make up all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
And that's my responsibility, because if something's not going well, I'll quit it. I won't try and improve the situation superficially. I will want to pull the tree out the root and find somewhere else to put it. So it made me really think about how housing and architecture in London has changed so much over the last 20, 30 years, where there's so many new build houses or really old houses but small. I need a lot of light and space. Where I thrive is in places that have very large windows, lots of light. So anyway, I found this amazing place. It's 5 minutes round the corner.
From
I can
here?
walk to work.
Right.
It's got 180 view of the city. You can see St Paul's, the Shard, all the way around. So yeah, I just had a little fear that for some reason I wouldn't get it.
So this is a live manifest. This is actually happening right here.
Now.
Right here, right now.
And I'm I want it, but there's this tiny thing in me which is what if they say no for some reason?
Well,
I'm getting a pain in my chest now.
As you talk about it?
Yeah.
So
right in my breast.
That's your heart energy?
Yeah. As I'm talking about it, I'm getting this little stabbing pain.
What do you think is happening there?
I think I feel things really deeply in my body, and I think that I've worked so hard to have lots of control over my life, and this is really out of my control.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm doing the best I can to nudge it, because usually I'd be like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I don't feel like that with this.
If we back it up a little bit and think about maybe, the last year, because you're obviously holding some energy around that. So if we back it up and really think about, the isolation, you felt really out of yourself. It's not you, not the normal way that you operate, the way that you stay connected, the way that you stay in relationship, the way that you stay in community. So to not be able to have people in your house, to be in lockdown, Like, what has that felt like? Like, what do you think you're still holding? What's the residue that you think you're still holding onto?
A lot of people feel either lonely, rejected, or abandoned. And I feel like not being able to have people over my house makes me feel all three. I've always used my ability to bring people together and have really amazing conversations as validity for my own reason for being, right?
Yeah.
Like, whenever I have my friends over, I always feel, wow, I'm so lucky to have such incredible people in my life. I feel so valued that I brought people together. Lots of people will have met and been like, they met at my salon, or they met in my office, or at a party, or that do you know what I mean? I've always been that person who facilitates space. I enjoy good food and good furniture and tableware, you know. I like making things pretty for people and kind of visually pleasing them. I just love it.
Well, it sounds like the way that you are love. It sounds like the way that you manifest love. You know, you're a people person, and it's really important to you. And it's like you say, it helps you feel alive. It helps you feel on purpose in a personal way, in a deep way. But I am interested in this moment when you emerged, because you're quite an emerger, aren't you, Sharmadean? It's like,
I'd say I am.
Yeah, big time. And you were born in Wolverhampton, and you obviously had bundles of creativity at a really early age, because you went to St Martin's, and then by the age of 21, you were running a really successful business. But I sort of
It was a bit later, like 25, I would say.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean. It's around early 20s.
Yes.
So I'm really interested in the child. I'm interested in little Sharmadean. And I'm interested in little Sharmadean because one of the things that really touched me, I'm sure lots of people have spoken to you about this before, but for me, and in terms of my work, you know, the fact that you really understand how important the inner child is, how important the child is when we have moments of low self-esteem or moments of doubt, and you write this wonderful way of being with your child, to forgive your child and to write the love letter. So I'm quite curious about what was happening for little Sharmadean.
Really timely question, because I've recently started having hypnotherapy, which is, you know, I'm only 3 or 4 sessions in. And when I go back to little Sharma, as a child, I was like very precocious, obsessed with reading, like loved reading. I just loved having information. I always loved stuff, clothes. You know, I always liked nice things. And from a really young age, I was always an explorer. I was often would go off by myself. There's always these little stories that your family tell you, right? One of the stories my family always tell me is how my mum took me shopping in like C&A or something, and I just walked off and got lost in the
masses of C&A red,
exactly,
little red
in
coats.
the rails,
yeah,
and
in the
stuff.
rails,
rails and rails and rails, and they found me staring at myself in the mirror.
Wow,
really little, like 1.5, 2, like just walking. I like that story because that's quite me, actually. It's like I find my own introspection more interesting than what's going on in this big, busy department store. But I've always been very dual personality, like a very classic Gemini. Yeah. I could be very extroverted around people, very performative, very high achiever, but I could easily be introverted, alone, quiet, and also do nothing.
Right.
People often think that I'm obsessed with work and busyness because I'm quite productive, but I'm actually not. Like, if I had the means, I would just do nothing.
What would you do?
I'd read.
Right, because that's the thing. I mean, yeah,
I'd just read.
You've got this incredible appetite for reading, right? Yeah. I used to love reading when I was young too, and I know I've read that about you. You know, you're always reading, but that's kind of, it's not nothing. It's something, isn't it? So there's that part of you that would maybe escape through reading, or just learn more or know more. That kind of curiosity is still happening.
Well, I just think it's really cool to like know something and then like turn it over in your mind. And actually, the most pleasure I get is from two things, either from not knowing something and discovering it in a book, or knowing it and reading it and feeling a kinship with the writer because I know the in-joke, or I know do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I read something and I get it, like I've just finished Tina Brown's Vanity Fair Diaries, and she's makes quite a few like in-jokes that only people who studied English literature or something would know. Makes me feel good to know. So it's not about doing nothing. It's more like I don't work for accolade. I don't work for praise. I don't even really work for acknowledgement, even though I could veer sometimes into a slight bitterness if I'm not recognised. It's not really the driving force, you know. I can control that. It doesn't really affect me that much. I just work because I think the world could be very different to how it is, and I have the ability to do so. And I work because I want to earn money to have some power to choose my own freedom and autonomy. And I think, you know, those are my two key things that I think will define me till probably 2025 or so.
Okay, so this idea of your purpose, right? I mean, you mentioned you work because you sort of have a vision of the world being a slightly different place. What is that vision?
So my life's vision is to help move the needle on gender equality for the tiny amount of time I'm on this planet, right? It's been ongoing for like centuries, actually. If you read literature from like the 15th, 16th century, there are various female thinkers over history who have made statements advocating for women's rights, even if they didn't call them that. So while I'm here, I'm like, well, what can I do to push that further so that in the next 100 or 200 years, it looks very different to what it is today? And I think what I have is a unique cross-section of both my life experience as a woman, but also the things that I know. So understanding both lived experience, but also understanding business and how the wider world works, understanding politics and policy, also understanding brand, because any movement is really about branding.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, completely.
And I think for me now with this mission, with Beauty Stack, it's like this is just one execution of it. And that's why I think of my life in like chapters, and I think Beauty Stack is the chapter where I'm advancing gender equality through technology and media.
Yeah.
But then when I'm 45, it might be through politics and charity. When I'm 55, it might be through law. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
So there's a sense of an openness to the ever-evolving part of you, you know, that part of you that's quite Gemini, quite, you know, on the move, but also really open to what's coming next, not getting stuck in a rut, you know, and trusting that there's creativity everywhere.
Trusting that opportunities are abundant and therefore I don't have to be tight with my anything. What's the word? Like I try not to have scarcity thinking at all. I try not to think, oh, there's only one person who can do a beauty tech startup, or there's only one person who's allowed to raise venture capital. There's only one. Do you know what I mean? I just think, oh, there's so much out there in the world and I can have my share.
This is abundance consciousness.
100%.
Right? So the fact that you just exist in that place means that that's what comes to you. That's what manifests in your life.
And it's funny you said, you know, we're even talking about, because I actually wrote it this morning. I wrote in this morning, I was like, the universe has got my back. God will provide. The universe will provide. I just wrote it because it's very reassuring, which is what I think the purpose of religion is anyway.
So a little bit of the meeting of different parts of you. So your fearlessness, sometimes you do feel like you still, because you're human, right?
All the time I'm fearing.
Right? So sometimes you've got to fake it to make it. You just got to show up and just be like, right, I do feel the fear and I will do it anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's real fearlessness. Some days you are just feeling like you've got this, okay? And then also the sort of courage to stay in your faith, which is the trust piece, isn't it? And working with that, but working with that daily, because every day it ebbs and it flows, right?
I find that so remarkable, and I find it incredibly feminine, is the ebb and flow of it. I have spoken to so many men in my life who have said, my feelings do not change from one day to the next. I'm like, wow, I wonder what that feels like. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, every day I wake up, it could be a good day or a bad day based on so many different things. I'm incredibly sensitive to hormones, to food, to weather, to all the full moon. I'm so at the behest of all of these external things. I think, what can I do to improve the chances of a good day? You know? So I think in terms of feeling the fear, I wouldn't say I feel the fear and do it anyway. I feel the fear and I pause and break it down logically. I will do various exercises, thought exercises. You know, some of the things that I've done in my life, I've done so many times that I don't have to actually do them. I can just think them. So, you know, like people say journal, or things that I'm experienced in, I can just think through it.
So you can go straight to the process.
Straight to the process.
Yeah.
So if I'm fearful of something, I'll be like, well, what is it? It's usually a confidence thing. Well, why confidence? Because I don't have the knowledge around it. Well, why not just get the knowledge?
So you go in really practically. You speak to that part of yourself, the fearful side, inverted commas, really practically. It feels like your adult self is kind of steps in and says, right, well, you don't have the knowledge, we can take care of that. Or,
Definitely.
you can read the book or find the person or do the course or whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Rather than that overwhelm of, oh, wow, I don't know. And then I get stuck, right? So a lot of people get stuck in that moment. They just get stuck with their fear.
Yeah, I don't get stuck that much because I don't really get stuck for more than 24 hours.
Because you've got these practical ways of...
Because I've got these practical ways, but they have to be bolstered with some spiritual ways as well. So I tend to go for very long walks.
Right.
I will meditate very sporadically. I got my mantra. I will do transcendental meditation. It's a real challenge for me actually and it's something that I want to achieve, is to truly make it part of my life, because it works wonders.
It does work wonders.
It's like it actually works, so why don't I do it?
Yeah.
Well, I know why I don't do it, but you know.
Why don't you do it?
Well, it's any type of self-worth, isn't it? It's like, oh, I don't deserve to be happy all the time. I don't deserve to feel relaxed all the time. So I'm going to deny myself this thing which I can easily access to actually give me the pleasure all the time.
Right.
You know? Like, I'm very good at intellectually understanding something while emotionally not doing it. But anyway, so what I was saying was, I will have practical ways of...
Being with the fear.
Being with the fear. But then I will have various nature, call a friend...
So connection
stuff to make me feel good. But it's so rare that something will last more than 24 hours for me. For me to have 2 bad days in a row, like 3 times a year tops.
So you mentioned the meditating. What about the walking? Tell me about your relationship to nature.
I love the walking. I love it so much.
Where do you go walking? In parks? Or
Hyde Park.
Yeah, you do Hyde Park.
Or Wormwood Scrubs. So when I was a kid, I loved being in trees. My first house that wasn't my grandparents' was in a council area, so terraced houses. At the end of the row was a factory. And to hide the factory, they had a 5-metre strip of trees and bushes. I used to start at one end of the bushes and pretend I was like Indiana Jones and hack my way all the way down to the other end of it. It's funny, I've got this memory, right, where at the end of me hacking through the bramble, I had a cut on my finger, but I didn't even notice it the whole time. And I remember at the end of the thing looking at this cut on my finger bleeding and feeling satisfied, because it was like, I didn't even notice it. I was just wild, you know?
And nature, you were like the wild child, and nature had touched you.
It touched me somehow.
You kind of have to be connected to it. If we're not connected to it, we've kind of had it. So
totally had it.
Yeah.
So many times as well, I want to lie down in the grass, right? But I don't, because it's dirty or wet. Like I got this big puffer jacket and I keep thinking one day I'm going to wear like my shit trousers and like shoes so I can just lie back in my coat almost like a snow angel. It feels stupid.
Yeah.
But it's silly because why shouldn't I lie back and look at the sky? I just think, oh, it's going to be wet or dirty or loads of excuses. But you know, somewhere I really want to go so bad is the sequoia forests in California.
Have you actually been into one of those?
Never.
Forests? I went up there to the redwood forest and
That's
the sequoias.
where I want.
It's just beyond.
Yeah. It's like my first trip to America when we can go, because I just feel like that's where I need to be.
They will speak to you.
Yeah, they will. I know it.
They are like guardians. Like you really sense this powerful, powerful spiritual energy. You know, in England, we've always talked about the dryads, and the dryads are the spirit of the trees. And that's an old druid, you know, an old Celtic thing. But it's in all indigenous Africa.
Totally.
You know, Native America.
Asia as well, with the banyan trees. I saw those in Hong Kong. I was like, wow.
With the
in
banyan
Jamaica
trees.
as well.
Yeah.
And do you know that, is it Lord of the Rings or
And
one
Lord
of
of the
those?
Rings.
When I saw that scene where the trees
They start where they're
walking,
Yeah.
it freaked me out.
Yeah, no, completely.
I was like, wow. You know, when I was a kid, I used to love like Labyrinth and all of those, Willow.
Yeah, Willow.
All of those films where there's like this forest.
Well, actually,
scene.
when you started talking about the sequoias, I was thinking about that Lord of the Rings moment, because I believe that, you know, where they get up and they're like, right, it's over, like we're coming for you, you know, and they decide.
I love that.
You know, they decide, they're like, we're going to go to war now because we have to show up for Mother Earth. We're showing up for the light, you know.
I spent the summer in Wiltshire, and Wiltshire is obviously Druid land, and I spent a lot of time in Avebury, but also Savernake Forest.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I was just like, yippee. I just feel like so old. This is what I was saying to my son. I was like, this tree is like centuries old. Because there's one tree, big belly tree, and it's like 1,000 years old, and it's like marked on the map, and it's like
It's
crazy.
probably in the Doomsday Book.
Must be.
Because there are some Doomsday oaks. There's quite a lot of those in Dorset. But they carry so much history, don't they? Carry so much. So many stories. What about Jamaica? How do you feel in Jamaica?
Oh, ancestral home, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jamaica's a really funny one because I didn't go till I was 28 years old. I was going through a really hard separation. I felt like I needed to...
Was this with your son's
Yeah, with my son's father. And Roman was would just turn 2. So I went there, and I remember when I landed, I thought, oh, what? I was always meant to be here. Mm-hmm. And everything about it was just healing. But I think that's what I needed.
Yeah.
So I ate like really clean ITAL food, spoke to so many people who just had endless amounts of wisdom. I travelled all around Jamaica for 2 weeks. Jamaica on that first trip was such a medicine for me. I can literally only describe it as my medicine, that I went back like 3 times the next year. I just kept going.
Right. Getting more of it.
I went like 7 times in a 2-3 year span. And then I was definitely like, I'd gotten over a hurdle, right?
Right.
So
You were feeling a bit better.
I was feeling better, but I just love it.
Yeah.
I feel that I can be free myself there. When I'm there, I'm like, can have my belly hanging out, no makeup, wild hair. I don't even have to brush my hair because the salt and the sea is so good.
So you kind of go back to something really rootsy.
Definitely rootsy.
Both parents from Jamaica.
No, my dad's Indian. My mum's family's Jamaican. So my mum's British born. My grandparents are Jamaican. And then on my dad's side, they're from Punjab region in India. I only know that because I did a DNA test because I don't know my dad at all.
So basically you've got like Mother India in the DNA as well.
Fully.
Do you have any draws to, do you get
Yes.
pulled into anything? Like, is there a Hindu pull? Or, because often it's like,
Do you know something?
your DNA will sort
Great
of tell
question.
you.
To me, my DNA is pulling me to a Sikh,
Right, that's why I said
which
it
is a
first.
warrior.
Right.
And also, my friend, who's half Indian, half German, she told me, she went, you come across as a Sikh to me. She was like, even your facial structure, your bone structure looks more Sikh. When I see an old Sikh man, I think, you could be my dad.
Sharmadean, you adopting lots of old Sikh men?
Totally.
Yeah.
I walked past an old Indian man yesterday in Holland Park and I was like, that could be my granddad.
It's that kind of real gentle affinity, or just that kind of part of you that's looking for a home, looking for that.
Always looking for a home. But I think a really good challenge for myself is to find home within myself.
Yeah, and that real rooted energy of just, this is where, I belong right in here.
Right here.
Inhabiting this body.
And there's some things that, it's funny because the things that make me feel at home tend to be a desk, a computer, and my books. If I've got those things, I'm actually okay anywhere. But even without those things, I can tend to lie there now and just like think within myself. But I feel that variation is okay within people.
Yeah.
And what I've realised is that people's life choices are all valid, really. So if I want to move house every 3 years, that is conducive to a highly productive mode for me. It's like what you said before about an emergence. It's like I get a renewed energy from my surroundings. My sign is ruled by
Air.
Mercury. Is it Mercury?
It's Mercury and air. Basically you just airy.
So
and
I'm gonna be flighty.
It's got you, and you've got
That's
that.
what Mercury's job is. You know what I mean?
And you've got the gem vibes.
Totally.
So you're going to be doing, one twin's going to be doing that, and then the other one will be doing something else.
Always.
The other one will be like, I want to live in Timbuktu, and the other one will go, no, we want to live in, ancient Islington.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I need town. I always say I'm town mouse, country mouse. I'm both.
So going back to the inner child, going back to the child, did you call it little Shams?
Little Charm.
Little Shams, yeah. And you grew up with mum, so I'm assuming you grew up with mum.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, the part of you that is a real woman's woman? When I rang up for this podcast and we chatted on the phone, I had only spoken to you for 5 minutes, and you said, if you want to do the podcast, you can do all your podcasts from one of my offices, come in and do the podcast. I thought, wow, this is quite a rare being. To have that level of generosity and that level of community. There is that part of you that just absolutely, what is mine is yours.
You know what? That last phrase is exactly what it is, because it goes back to what I said about the abundance thinking. To me, how I kind of learn about people's personalities is how they are if there's a dinner party and someone brings an uninvited guest. What do you do? I always have the mentality, and I think about this quite often, that there's always room at the table and we just divide 10 portions into 11 and it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I think that comes from my church upbringing.
Right.
So my family is Seventh-day Adventists.
Yeah.
And I've got 8 amazing aunties. Well, 7 actually, because my mum is one of the 8 daughters in the family, 5 uncles. And every quarter, so the 13th Sabbath, we would have a big church-wide family meal. Everyone would bring a dish and everyone would share. And, it might be naive now because I'm sure the adults were gossiping, but when I was younger, it was never a feeling of like, oh, someone's not brought something, or, you know what I mean? Like everyone had their speciality as well.
Yeah.
And my family are just... they're so great. Like, my auntie runs a soup kitchen in Wolverhampton. My other auntie has homeschooled all of her children amazingly. And my granddad, actually, when he retired, my granddad's my hero. Like, when he retired, he was a bus driver.
Yeah.
For, his whole life. And then when he retired, he was bored. He bought an old bus and then started driving the church kids to school in Birmingham. Just because... And it's that kind of thing that it's like my family are quite active community vibes. But when I was a kid, I just remember thinking how much I loved church, loved going to church, loved singing, loved all the activities.
Did you love Jesus?
I was too intellectual, as in I was questioning. I was a person of science and reason.
Well, actually, I was going to ask you, so you grew up in the Seventh-day Adventist church. What is your relationship to spirit or spirituality, your spiritual life now, how would you describe it?
Growing up, it's been a process of divorcing religion, faith, and spirituality from each other.
Yeah.
Because from when I was about 13, I realised they were all different things. I realised religion was the ritual by which you show faith, and with long-lasting faith, you feel spirituality. And when I was 13, I stopped going to church. A couple of reasons.
I was like, was that the teenage rebellion? What was happening?
On one level, it was purely practical. I went to a school that was 20 miles away. I'd have to get up at 6:30 every morning from aged 11. And by the time it got to Saturday, I was exhausted, simply just worn out. Second thing was, as I started to move and lose my, youthful naivety, I started to realise that there was a lot of hypocrisy in the church.
Yeah.
So I don't understand this gravity of the pastor. I don't understand the ritual of having one person who is supposedly higher to God than somebody else. I never understood it. As a child, I always thought, why is one person more religious than the other? I don't get it.
Or more in contact.
More in contact.
More in connection.
Yeah. But I love church because it was like another fun house to go to. It was like all the kids running around. There's about 200 people. Loved it. So then I thought, I've got faith, very strong faith. I thought Seventh-day Adventism might not be my religion, but there's got to be a religion out there for me. So I researched them all. I was obsessed. Found that the closest religion to what I believed to be true was Jainism.
So the walking, Jainism, for listeners who don't know what that is, it's really amazing religion from ancient India. And the devotees go out, and every step they take, they make sure that nothing living is underfoot. So every step, so that is the medicine. So the medicine is every single moment is present, and they're in that presence, and they're in connection with the universe. They don't want to kill an ant, a beetle.
Yeah, that bit I couldn't handle because I thought it's a natural circle of life.
So what did you love about Jainism?
The thing that stood out to me about Jainism was basically worshipping the universe and nature. So if anyone asked me what my religion is now, I'd just say Mother Nature. Literally, because I think religion provides comfort, reassurance, structure, best practice, sometimes worst practice. I think I'm very connected spiritually to the world around me, but I don't believe in ritual to prove that.
So ritual being religion?
Ritual being religion.
So I want to talk about the Genius Lab. And Bob Roth talks about the Genius Lab. So Bob Roth is this big TM, Transcendental Meditation teacher in America. And he talks about how meditation accesses the Genius Lab in our brains. Okay, so that's the changing of waves, beta to alpha to, and it's a neural change in the brain chemistry.
Yeah.
And you access your Genius Lab. It feels like you access it all the time. You are in a constant state of creation and manifestation, is my observation. How does that sound?
I wouldn't call it a genius lab, but I understand what you mean.
Well, remember, we've all got one. So
and I also understand the gamma rays and the changing. I've read studies about what long-term meditation can do to the brain, which is wonderful. And we just did a book club on Gay Hendricks' upper limit problem, the big leap, which talks about achieving your zone of genius. So yeah, all very timely. Because I want to be able to share why vision and purpose is important. I know it for myself, but I learn by teaching. So if I can tell a group of women, this is why purpose is important, then I too will learn why it's important and remember.
So why would you say it's important?
I think it's really down to personality type, but for my type of personality that thrives on a direction, purpose is important to give a meaning to your existence here. Not everyone needs it, like a long-term purpose. A lot of people are, and I'm quite envious, by the way. I'm envious of people who are satisfied by simple present pleasures. But because I'm always living in the future, the purpose shows me where to put my next footstep. Do you know what I mean? I would say that having a strong vision and purpose is very integral to my personality type.
So what about love?
What about it?
What are you gonna manifest? What were you manifesting? What's going on the personal vision, mission, statement, purpose,
So I
cosmic
wrote that a
canvas?
couple of years ago, and I think
You wrote the man a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You need to write him again.
I need to write him again.
You need
I
to
need to
bring it
update
on.
it. I don't know,
Updates.
because the man that I wrote a couple of years ago is still the kind of man I like.
But reaffirm.
I need to add more detail.
Add
Because
more
they come
detail.
in, but the wrong one, because you missed a bit out.
Do not miss a bit out, Sharmadean. You'll get yourself in trouble.
How can I explain? My relationship style can be very anxious. My attachment style, right? I thrive well with a partner who is truly equal, who has his own thing going on and lets me be independent and free, but also a partner who is both socially and commercially successful. So what I mean by that is I obviously am working to build a big company, but I really care about social impact. I'd expect my partner to be the same. So I'd expect my partner to be thinking in a systems way about the world, like not doing something that's not trying to make the world somehow better. And I'm the kind of person who my partner is my best friend, my confidant, lover, number one fan. I'm his number one fan. You know what I mean? I'm the kind of person that if I'm in a secure relationship, I can achieve anything.
Have you met that person ever before?
It's hard to say, because in the throes of like youthful love, you always think you've met the person until it ends. I've definitely seen elements of that person in people, and it might not be the right time, place, or situation. I would say that I have met that person, but him in 10 years
Oh, wow.
would be better for me.
Okay.
Some people need to have life experience to get on your level.
So,
You know?
in short, you haven't met that person yet.
I haven't met that person
Right, so
yet.
we've got to own that, haven't we? And then, sure, you're saying to the universe, bring it on.
Bring me that person.
We're not waiting a decade.
Yeah.
We'll be talking when you're 48. You'll be my age, and we'll be sitting here kind of thinking. It's that thing of very direct instruction to the universe.
You know something,
I want to
though?
be met like this. This is what it looks like, and I'd like it pronto.
I don't know if I want it pronto.
Oh well, maybe that's why it's not here.
Yeah, I think why it's not here is because I don't. If I'm honest, right, this is a problem for most men in my life. My life's very full. So when I think, when have I got time? I think I've got these pillars. It's like myself, my friends, my family, my son rather than family, my partner, and my work. And I can only ever manage about 3 at once, and something drops. So, for example, if you want to see me, you have to work with me right now, because that's what it's like. If I give to everything else, usually myself drops. So I kind of have always thought that I would meet my partner later in life. Do you know what I mean? I've always had that feeling that because I'm a long-term person, you know, if I'm with someone and we have 6 months where we're living in different countries, what's the big deal if you're going to be together for 30 years? That's how I see it. But other people don't. They're like, 6 months apart, we have to break up. I'm like, okay. You know what I mean?
What's your rising sign, Sharmadean? Or your moon?
I think it's Taurus.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this. It is Taurus. Because now I'm going to do a little pick of some oracle cards. I'm going to set them out for you. It's a mixture of oracle and angel cards for you. And so you're just going to have a moment taking a few deep breaths and forgetting about what's happening around you. So me, the mics, the fact that you've got a telephone call waiting for you. And just thinking about maybe one of those questions that you had at the beginning, or just a little bit of guidance for today. So really just allowing that to drop in, a little bit of permission for that to drop in, and then picking a card or two.
Every time.
Do you want to tell us what that is, Sharmadean?
This card is Island Solitude. And do you want to know, when I do tarot, which card I pick as my number? It's happened to me. I've picked it 3 times.
The Hermit.
The Hermit.
The Hermit. There it is.
The Hermit. I have picked. I've only had tarot like 4 times, and I picked the Hermit 3 out of 4.
Okay, well, that's the little hermit side of you, right? It's telling you.
This guy.
Yeah, that guy. But let's maybe pick one of the angel cards and see what else comes up.
Archangel Uriel. Your emotions are healing, which enables you to open to greater love. I will help you release anger and unforgiveness from your heart and mind. That's a good one.
Do you believe in angels, Sharmadean?
No.
Okay, well...
It's funny how my mind works, isn't it? Because I think some people are more connected to angels. In the same way, I believe some people are more connected to ghosts or to ancestors or to various incarnations.
Yeah. But these, you know, one of the things I always say to people when they don't feel a connection to, because some people don't feel a connection to the earth, and I just say, stay open.
Yeah.
Remember, the journey is long, right?
The journey is so long.
The journey's long, and really just give permission for the journey to be what it wants to be, because we never know, Sharmadean.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
That was lovely.
For being on Love Purpose Connection. To find out more, you can find Sharmadean at Sharmadean Reid on Instagram. You can also follow me, of course, at Estelle.Bingham. Come and find me. I'd love to know what you think of the show. And of course, if you've enjoyed it, do spread the word and rate it if you can. This podcast was produced by Sarah Cudden with exec production from Kate Taylor. It's a Feast Collective production. Till the next one, wishing you all more love, purpose and connection.